It's a deflationary currency. There's a finite number of Bitcoins that will be created. It's something that's 6 million and 6.5 million are created right now, being created. There's always 10 500 Bitcoins every hour are created. And so by 2034, 2038, there'll be 21 million. So necessarily, because it's got a finite number of coins, it's a deflationary currency. Now this makes economists freak out. It's the only time that all of our inflationary currencies, which are used by all of the Western world and by most of the rest of the world, in fact, are all inflationary. To some degree, it's been extremely bad. Think of Mexico, think of Argentina, think of the problems Greece is having even now. And because of the bailouts in the States and how they're solving it, which is quantitative easing too, which is very complicated, I don't understand it except when someone explained it to me and knows what it is, which is printing money. This is devaluing the savings that people in the States have in a very bad time, and they should be insanely outraged at the government, but they've made it so complicated that they're not. And I think Bitcoin, as Luke has been saying, is kind of a response to the way that the establishment, as it were, has manipulated banking laws and currency just on fiat to maintain the position, the geopolitical positions that they've invested so heavily in. And I see Bitcoin as a response to that. And what I've been reading actually, where Bitcoin stands to have the most success, is in those places where the banking systems are very corrupt or very slow or broken. This is the third world, which is where there's a lot of business actually starting now, especially in raw resources, which all, of course, are now completely convertible to food. Every resource is convertible to food. So Africa is going to be a huge place. Their banking system is completely broken. Most of the time, you put a truck full of money and you put it down the road, and you send it down the road with a bunch of guys with guns. And I was just reading someone's blog who's been doing economics research in Africa, saying this is where Bitcoin's really going to thrive. No longer do you have to risk, your 6 guys with Uzis not being enough for your $5 million in the truck. You can actually just send it with Bitcoins. And you can look, Bitcoins are not anonymous. They're pseudonymous. Everybody you can create as many addresses as you want, but once you use that address to spend or send a Bitcoin from one person to another, everybody can see it necessarily because the calculation has to be done to legitimize that transaction. So you don't see it when you receive or anybody else receives a Bitcoin, you only see it when they're spent. Now there are some ways to make it more complicated, but for the most part people haven't been adopting those methods. It will come. There'll be services that will educate people, that will do it for you. And right now, because generating a Bitcoin by mining it, as it's called on your computer, is too hard and too slow to do just by yourself. You might see one payout, my average would be every 4 or 5 months right now at the current rate, I'll get my 50 Bitcoins. Instead, I contribute to a pool. But we have to trust the management of the pool and who's operating it. And in the pool that I was in, the guy made a change because he had a problem with his programming about 2 weeks ago. And we saw it's basically a change in banking policy. And this pool is the equivalent of a bank, and he just made a fiat change, and the customers, as it were, freaked out. Some of them left the pool, kind of like a run on a bank. So we're seeing the formation of this community-based level. There's no act of law that puts him in charge of the pool. He just runs the service, and his constituent members give him feedback. And contrary to the rest of what I see usually in IRC, Internet Relay Chat, which is where a lot of anonymous and 4chan type people hang out, is that people are incredibly ready to listen to each other and take suggestions, because we realize we've all got some sort of stake in this, and to make it work, we have to cooperate and fix this, make this system work.